In this video, we see how to use GeoGebra to calculate the correlation coefficient and to work with residuals. The directions are given here in the lecture notes, and we'll use the example below to illustrate the process. So here we have a data set that I took from one of my classes. In the first column, we have the number of siblings. In the second column, we have the number of aunts and uncles. And there are 6 rows in this data set, so that means we have this data for 6 different students. So the first thing we need to do is to get the data into GeoGebra. So to do that, we'll open GeoGebra, we go to the 3 dots, and we open up the spreadsheet. So in columns A and B, we want to have the data set. So we can either type those in directly, or we can copy and paste. Once we have the data set in GeoGebra, we'll highlight the data. We go to the histogram symbol, and we click on 2-variable regression analysis. First, we see the scatter plot for the data set. Then to calculate the correlation coefficient, we'll go to the sigma x, and here it is. R is 0.3052. Then to compute the residual for the 3rd student in the data set, we need to turn on the linear regression option in GeoGebra. So to do that, at the bottom, under regression model, we click on this list of possible regression models. We want the linear model, and then it creates the linear regression equation for us. Let's write that equation down over here. So we have y, and I'm going to put a hat on the y because this is the predicted y value, is 0.5x plus 3.8333. So to compute the residual for the 3rd student, we need to know what the predicted value is for the 3rd student. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. We can calculate it by hand. So for the 3rd student, they had 1 sibling and they had 7 aunts and uncles. So we have to find the predicted value for this student. And they have 1 sibling, so we'll put in 1 for x. And then we evaluate this expression. So we can do that on the calculator. That's going to be 0.5 times 1 plus 3.8333, giving us a predicted number of aunts and uncles of 4.3333. Now, there's another way of doing that. If we go back to GeoGebra, down at the bottom here, if we put in 1 and hit enter, it tells us the predicted value. That's our y hat. That's the same value we calculated before, 4.3333. To get the residual, we're going to take the measured value for that student and subtract the predicted value from the observed value. So that student had 7 aunts and uncles. So that's the observed value. So y hat for this student is 4.3333. So to get the residual for the student, we'll subtract those numbers. So we get a residual of 2.6667. So that is the residual for the 3rd student in the data set. Since that's a positive number, the model underpredicted by 2.6667. And we have R up here, the correlation coefficient of 0.3052.